Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, thanks everyone for hosting me. I'm also ISA member, just to let you know. It's really great what you are doing and you have been doing before. I just joined last year, so I'm a new one. Okay, I'll get into it. So let me share my screen here. Okay, you see my screen?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, cool. So Gituzh, I'll talk a bit. I'll start with explaining what was the problem, how we saw it, and why we decided that we need to act on to solve this issue. So, I mean, I'll just summarize here. There are many numbers and quantitative and qualitative indicators showing that the dire state of science in Armenia. I'm not going to go all over it. There's a huge bunch of them, probably. I don't know, maybe I can bring 20 or something numbers. But I'll just mostly, I mean, it's obvious that the scientific ecosystem was degrading for the last 30 years. Just two numbers that can show you what the situation right now is, that we have almost sevenfold by our estimates of decrease of number of researchers in Armenia during the last 30 years. And at the moment, we have something about 2,500 scientists in Armenia, and 40% of them are older than 65 years. And it's been for the last maybe 10 years or something, and it's still ongoing, that people are actually dying, and whole direction of science is just disappearing with them because they don't have the next generation to continue their work. One of the main reasons is that there is no actually demand for science, not in public and not in the government, not in the elite probably. So the public is disinterested in science. There were no, at least before, maybe now it's a bit changed. There were no public discussions about the importance of science. What is it for? How it affects the development of the society? Why is it critical? It's essential. Infrastructure is degraded. So research infrastructure. In some areas, in some very important areas of science, we don't have research groups that are doing research, and there is no basically order or request from the government or different ministries for specific type of R&Ds, we should have also during the last 30 years contributed to the development of the science and actually bringing the results of this R&D into government sector, public sector, and there is no actually even a commitment to really increase the investment in R&D. So for last 30 years, the Armenia's GERD, which is gross expenditure on R&D, was about 0.2% of GDP. And also there's like other things like the tax environment is not really favorable for even like for public, but not only public, but private R&D investments. The number of PhD students which are funded by state is very low. It's about 150 PhDs every year, and this is overall. It's not only STEM. And if you count the rate of how the number of researchers is decreasing, our estimate is about 200 people each year, which is more than the number of state-funded PhDs each year. And obviously, a very small percent of these PhDs go into becoming scientists in Armenia. And in the whole country, we have something about 1,000 PhDs at each time. So which is, and it's decreasing actually. Scientific career is not appealing, obviously. There were, until last year, there were only very short-term grants, 2 years. Only last year, first time the scientific committee made a call for 3-year grants. And this year, after all the campaigning that we did, which partially contributed to making this happen, they did 5-year grants. This is unprecedented in Armenia. I'll talk about it a bit later. Obviously, if you check, the funding is very low. I'm not going to go into details right now, but not just salaries part. If you take what was let's say last year funding, science funding, and you divide by the number of people involved in the research, not only researchers but few also other like technical specialties. You have something about 300,000 drams, which is $600 a month per person. The overall funding, like everything, salaries, hardware, everything, which is obviously very low. So you can't even have any you can't talk about any appeal for people to go there, any results. So there are more things. I'm not going to spend more time. You probably know a lot of it. So what the thing is that we at some point our community, which is I mean high tech, right? I can argue that every success that you have in high tech is one or another way is connected to that scientific heritage that we had 30 years before, and we just totally exhausted and wasted it, I would say, during the last 30 years. But it's I would say in a sense converted into what we have right now in the high tech sector in different ways. You have people which did their PhDs with a good professor, then they went into the high tech, or they had their parents or grandparents or scientists who taught them how to think and instilled in them this need for scientific excellence and learning, constant learning and doing new things. Or they just had a professor. They didn't do any research. Maybe they didn't go into PhD, but they had a good professor who was a scientist and taught them a lot. So we have a big community right now. I'm going to talk about this. So with everyone who you talk, mostly we see that there is this connection. So that's actually the value of what the science, one of the values that the science was bringing to us, and still we see this huge value. We have right now companies which are fundraising more and more, and their value is growing. And the problem is that this pool of talent, of knowledge is almost completely exhausted. It's not reproducing anymore. So we at some point we started seeing like a direct impact into our businesses, but we also understanding the global picture, how important this is for country and the environment of where we want to stay and create, and we want our children to stay in Armenia, right? Go there. One of the direct impacts was that we started seeing a very huge lack of talent that we can hire. So this was one of the I would say like pain points, but not the only reason that pushed us to start acting. And we started consolidating, discussing in our community with different like founders, top managers, that okay, we need to act on this. This is important. And so I'm not going to go the whole history, but at the moment, right now, at this moment, we have let me admit. We have 17 unions and foundations who had pledged their support to Gituzh, or basically to the agenda that Gituzh is pushing forward, which is actually outlined in the first statement that we put public this February. And more than 170 business leaders, like founders, top managers, mostly high tech, but not only, like businessmen who also individually pledged their support. And we mostly the goals we outlined in three points, which is we were like demanding from the government to increase the funding at least 50% this year. So what was planned in the budget, we are saying that you need to revise the budget and increase at least 50%. And this was like not arbitrary number. We knew that there are programs in the scientific committee which we discussed many times, and we knew that this is the right way to go forward. The second point was that we need a bold commitment. We need the 1% GDP commitment at least by 2024. And in order this not to be just words, we want it actually in a very strong commitment, like in the law. Like, let's put it in the law that at least 4% of the state budget, which is approximately 1% of GDP, will be spent on R&D in Armenia by 2024. And the third one was that we need to implement, and we need to start developing and implementing a very like huge, like a bold strategy, but it needs to be based on this commitment. So always the discussion was, okay, let's have a strategy that will have the commitment. We said, no, you need to have the commitment because the strategy is going to be developed based on this commitment. Because you can't just, it's different strategies if you say I'm going to do it for 0.5% or 1% or 2%. This has completely different strategies. So we need to have this commitment fixed in advance so that the community, the scientific committee, they can start like discussing and putting together the strategy. And also actually is very strong signal to not only people in Armenia, but also scientists outside that now this is serious. We can go and start putting our efforts into helping to develop and implement this strategy. So this, we had these three goals. I just outlined this as in one line, 1% of GDP by 2024, but basically we had 3 points in our statement. And we started working on popularizing science, scientists, and also advocating for increase of the investment in R&D. So something has changed. So I want to share some good news that happened this year. They started doing attestation of the peoples involved in research in Armenia. And based on that attestation, they are going to change the base salaries. They will put people in different grades, and it will actually, each grade will gradually increase until 2025. So starting next year, that's going to, the fund for total fund for base salary is going to almost double after the attestation. And then by 2025, it's going to become almost 3.5 more times more than this year in 2021. So this was one of the results of the campaign and proposals that we did. We actually were more ambitious. We were asking to do it this year, not in 4 years, like increase the like 3-4-fold this year and start putting very strong demands from the scientific community. Whoever not performs, they need to be kicked out. But you need to start paying a proper basically salary, then start demanding, because for 30 years we didn't pay enough to people, and like basically filtering out right now before increasing would not be correct, because some people, you don't know who. So basically the idea was that you know who's not performing, but you don't know who is not capable of performing. So you need to start paying properly and demanding the result. If somebody's even after that not performing, then you need to kick them out or put them on different grade. So we got some longer term grants. I already mentioned that this year, first time in Armenia, they made a call for 5-year advanced grants for the most advanced like researchers and their groups. And they already summarized this, and I think they gifted 49 grants, and it's average, I think, just a bit more than 300K for 5 years. Unfortunately, only 44 of these 49 are in STEM. We are in, I mean, everybody knows that humanities and social sciences are in a very dire state in Armenia, even worse than STEM, which is also not in good shape. And it's only 5 of these grants were in humanities and social sciences. Then there are new programs that then the scientific committee is starting, which I'll talk a bit more on the next slide, which I think is very important for us, people who partially or mostly are in diaspora and involved in science, they can start helping or even participating in these programs. It's very important because it's targeted on increasing the scientific capabilities and human capital in Armenia. And of course, I mean, all these programs, they are based on some funding, so there's overall increase of funding. So there was a slight decrease in the budget, you can see on the graph, because of all the crisis that we went through, obviously. But then there was even more tendency earlier this year to cut it more. But as you can see, they actually increased. So there were 2 revisions of the budget this year, which in total increased the funding by about 15%, what was planned for this year and what actually is allocated. And next year's budget is already accepted, I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago in the Parliament of Armenia. And there is another 60% on top of was actual budget, the increase planned for next year. And actually, a lot of this is part of the programs that started this year or previously, but there are also funds for new programs, which I'll talk about. And also, one of the achievements that I would say is there is some communication at the moment with the government. I was in Armenia 1.5 months ago, and first time we had a short meeting with the Prime Minister and Minister of Economy, and also Minister of High-Tech Industry were also present. And we had 6 founders from high-tech community in the meeting, and we shortly discussed like what are issues for the high-tech community, what are our successes, and what are the biggest bottlenecks, which we outlined as the biggest bottleneck is the scientific ecosystem in Armenia, the dire state of scientific ecosystem in Armenia. And we started some discussion. I wouldn't say that we are totally on the same page right now, but we can see that there is some discussion, and we already saw that some positive things that changed, and we are going to make some statements about this. So this is some of the good news I want to share, which happened because of all this like snowball of people coming together and starting campaigning the need of really international and competitive scientific ecosystem in Armenia, and that we don't have time. We need to invest, I don't know, rapidly into this. This is existential. So what's still missing? That I want to also say a few things that even after all these communications, we see that there is not really, there's lack of understanding of the existential role of scientific ecosystem, competitive scientific ecosystem. People tend to, we see that decision makers, they think, okay, let's try small things and then we'll increase. So our approach is that we don't have time. Like when we start talking about 1% of GDP, the main counter argument is that the ecosystem is not capable of accepting such investment. So that's I would say totally unacceptable from our perspective, because the change, the modernization is not only about investing more, it's also about how we are changing the ecosystem. If you don't think that your current scientific community and the infrastructure is capable of absorbing this kind of investment, then obviously your target should be at the first stages in parallel to funding what can be absorbed efficiently, but also funding increasing the capabilities, mostly targeting how we are going to make it appealing for people, scientists outside of Armenia, to come to Armenia and do research there, so that we can start investing more, so that the ecosystem can absorb more funding. So they don't. It seems like they don't get this, and it seems that there's a lack of understanding that this is really we need this modernization as fast as possible. We can't say it will take another 5-10 years. We need to do it like under 5 years. And there's also lack of belief, I would say, by a lot of people in the government, in the decision makers, that we see that we are capable of doing this. They don't. It seems like a lot of people don't believe in this. So going forward, I want to just talk a bit about the new programs that the Science Committee of Ministry of Education, Science and Culture and Sport. Yeah, they combined 4 things together. So there's a science committee inside the ministry, which is fully responsible for the science, for developing the strategies, for announcing the calls, for for distributing the funds. So they are going to do 4 new programs next year, which I think this is very important, and I want to start outreaching about this. They don't, again, they also take their time. They want to make it final, then release it. But in our opinion, in Gituzh's opinion, we need to start preparing also people about what's going to happen, so they also can start thinking, planning, and also maybe giving some feedback to them how they should do this program, because you can't do this in vacuum, because these are very new and obviously they don't have experience with this. So one of the programs is they are going to fund is PhD students visiting the best labs in the world and getting some experience. So basically, there's an advisor in the lab. Let's say in US, some good university or institute, and so the government, he or she are capable of advising the student, and the government will fund them, the student, to go and spend their time there, contribute to the research that this group is doing, learn some new things, publish, and then hopefully most of them will come back and stay in Armenia and either advance the groups they are in or create new groups. The same with the postdocs. So people who already have their PhDs, so they are young scientists that they can go and also get this experience, exchange of experience, basically in the best labs in the world. The third program that they are planning is they are calling it parallel labs. I haven't myself heard this term, but obviously they are saying this is a known term in the community. But basically the idea is that you have leading scientists somewhere outside of Armenia leading a research group, and they can establish a lab in Armenia, gather researchers there, and basically lead the research that they are doing, but not spend most of their time in Armenia. This is something maybe also similar to what FAST Foundation started doing with advanced program a few years before, and it's in a sense like similar to that. And the fourth one is actually for the people who are ready to move to Armenia temporarily, or if you want to stay there longer, to come there and do research in Armenia. So staying there, most of the time spent in Armenia. So this is either individual researchers who will join some labs, or people who can come and establish new groups. I think they are even thinking maybe have this like 2 grades of these fellowships, which is for individual and for the groups. They are still in the process of finalizing. So what I want to say here is that yeah, and then also I want to add a few things about what is happening on a private funding side of research. So recently we came up with this new concept, which actually was termed by one of the members, David Baldassar, who is a co-founder of CRISP. So 1.5 months ago, there was a TEDx Yerevan in Armenia, and it was fully about science. And actually, they are releasing the videos. I'm inviting you to check their videos of the talks. I also talked there about Gituzh in general. David also talked about this new, I would say, concept of corporate science responsibility, which is individuals or companies in similar way as corporate social responsibility, they are helping to develop the scientific ecosystem in a country because they understand, like basically giving back to the community because they understand how essential for them and for the whole society is science in this case. So there are some examples that are happening actually, and I just wanted to again just give you a heads up. There are going to be more announcements on this topic, and some of them are still in the progress, but it's important to know about this. So one of the first thing actually, David himself and his wife, they created a fellowship at the research lab called Bazung Space Research Laboratory, which is a new laboratory created about 1 year ago, dedicated fully to space research. It's a non-profit. All this, like you can see, Yerevan and Bazung, Armenia Informatics Institute or CSIE, they are all in a similar model. It's like a foundation, private foundation, which is non-profit, which is dedicated to advancing some of the fields. And we have, I think, Hrant recently joined, who's a founder of Yerevan, and they showed that this is actually a good way of advancing some fields. They have a, I think, 4 years already history. Hrant can correct me if I'm wrong. And they really achieved some really amazing results. And this model works. I would say that the goal of this, just to so okay, just continue about the fellowship. So they already established their named fellowships at this lab with coming from this concept of corporate science responsibility. So there are a few fellowships that are in development by Yerevan, by Armenian Bioinformatics Institute, and also there is a new lab at the Polytechnic called CSIE Autonomy Center of Excellence. They are also going to announce some positions for researchers, probably in the form of fellowships also. And also, as I mentioned, fast advanced grants. This is so. Corporate science responsibility is not only about fellowships. It's just it's probably one of the first way of expressing this responsibility because it requires probably it's an easier form to start with for people, and it's actually requires less commitment on the funding side. So our estimate was that it's in the case of Bazung, it was about $25,000 a year to start with one fellowship. So it's more or less easy. But when it comes to other forms like advancing the infrastructure, buying equipment, or even scientific grants, it might be more capital intensive. But also this can also be in the concept of corporate science responsibility, because again, it's individuals or corporates giving back to the community, scientific community. And again, I mentioned one more time, fast advanced grants, which they started years ago. They now want to expand this. Actually, they are going to have some dinner here in Hollywood and in Beverly Hills, sorry, in January, I think. So they are started fundraising and expanding this program. So I just want to jump to how I think you and in general, like diaspora in general, or specifically scientists and engineers can help to this process. So one of the things that we definitely see that there can be huge help from in this case ISA and ISA members is they need advisors who can accept these PhD students and postdocs outside of Armenia in the best labs for people to come and get their experience there, do research. So if you or some people you know, not necessarily of course of Armenian heritage, if they are willing to accept, because it's maybe it's not the correct term, but it's basically they are not paying for these people, right? So they have an additional person who can do work for them, with them, and they don't need to find any funding for that. But of course, if they also can cover some part of it, that's also great, but not necessarily. So if you know people or yourself are ready to accept people's PhDs and postdocs from Armenia, I think it's great if you can in advance share your willingness to do this. So we are already working with the scientific community to probably prepare some kind of forms that people who are interested can start filling in. So at least we start understanding what's the pool of people that can accept, and also on the other side, what's the pool of people who want to participate in Armenia in these programs. And the second, for the parallel labs, obviously scientists are needed, PIs are needed who can establish these labs in Armenia, and not fully moving there, maybe visiting it a few times a year, maybe a month in total or something, but leading these labs remotely and advancing the specific fields there. And also, of course, the programs for moving and working in Armenia. We can, if anybody is interested in the community or, yeah, Vartan, sorry, I'm going to finish and then I'm happy to answer the questions. So if you are yourself interested in participating in these fellowships and temporarily or for longer term go to Armenia, then that's also very great, because again, they are starting with small number of fellowships, which we want to show that there is more demand. So I think if they, let's say, I think they're targeting something about 10 maybe next year, we want to show that there can be more applications and there are more people willing to do this. In this case, they will have like more foundation to go and us also Gituzh and also probably science committee, I'm thinking they will have more foundation to go and ask for more investment in these programs even next year. So revise the budget and increase it, or even if necessary, we can find some private funding for this. So the fellowships part is that we need people to find them that can participate in this and apply to this program, so that we can maybe disseminate the program, or maybe someone from you are willing to participate in this. And also the third one I want to say how we can help. So you saw that there's a big community of organizations that have joined Gituzh basically. So if ISI can join also, that would be really great. So we can discuss this separately, what it means with the people who are responsible of making such decisions. So with this the second point here with the parallel labs and people going there, I want to just mention that this is it's not only about just another postdoc or just going somewhere to do research. We view this, I think we should also present to people this opportunity as very ambitious thing, that you can go there and start some new field. So basically being a kind of a pioneer who goes and in a sense an entrepreneur who goes and starts a new research group, let's say, or joins some other person who maybe also moved within these programs and advance that field and start bringing value to the public and private sectors in the different fields, because we need these competence centers in Armenia. I can even maybe like, let's say, for example, one thing that I understand much better, that in robotics there's a lot of lack of knowledge and experience in Armenia. We don't have these excellent centers where people can go and get some experience in control theory, let's say, or there are no professors who can teach this. And obviously, we need this profession a lot in Armenia. Even if the students are not going to become all of them researchers, which is how it should work. And so this is how you can help. And I just wanted to say, yeah, you again individually you can also follow Gituzh on social media and engage in the conversation. Thank you. Happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Tigran. This was very interesting and informative. I think, hold on a second. I have two different cameras on. Okay. Valentin, do you want to, oh, we have two questions, Tigran. Do you want to read them and answer? Or do you want me to read it?
Yeah, I can read this.
Okay.
So I have one from Vartan, who's, do you think it would be better to create the infrastructure and support in Armenia to keep the talent in Armenia? What are the obstacles to achieving this? So one of the part of the new funds that's budgeted for the next year, 2.5 billion dirhams, which is $5 million, about $5 million, is for updating the research infrastructure. In our opinion, again, from Gituzh's perspective, this is not really enough. We should invest heavily in updating the infrastructure, and we are going to advocate more for this. But you need to also keep in mind that when they update this infrastructure, they make a call, right, to the community, like present to us what hardware you need and what are you going to do with it. So we need also people in Armenia who have more people in Armenia who can dream big and can really put forward these ambitious programs and ask for like equipment which is like very expensive and explain what result it's going to bring. So it's a connected issue. That's why we think that the biggest problem is to somehow get to the point when we will have a lot of people moving to Armenia and starting doing research and putting forward these programs, because all this needs some kind of, like, obviously explanation why you want to buy this infrastructure. And that's probably one of the obstacles, I would say, for the updating of the infrastructure. There are other things, obviously, also, like how there's a law on state purchases, which is very restrictive. Like, everybody is really sick of it, I would say, in the scientific community, and not only. It takes too much effort to purchase something, even if the grant is allocated. The customs also, they tax it. Usually in other countries, they don't tax the research equipment, but in Armenia, they tax it. So there is some obstacles, which will be one of the topics that we are going to popularize in next year and also advocate for a change. And actually, I would say that Science Committee already has their plans for next year to start making it easier for researchers to get their hardware.
So, yes.
Yeah. And for Gagi, probably, I don't know if I answered Vartan. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, well, yeah, more or less. I mean, I think I think the problem is broader, so it needs probably to address other areas such as just government policy. So I was just trying to understand what the climate is politically in Armenia to understand willingness of the government to listen, to enact and support programs that would really, let's say, model the patterns that have succeeded throughout history with other countries. To me, it seems like the problem is that the government is just a failed state. And whether it's for political reasons or just lack of experience, I don't know. But the problem I see is that a lot of these people, they leave Armenia for whatever, postdoc, PhD or something, and then they don't come back because there's no job opportunities, even if it's a government-run research lab or a subsidized effort or investment from abroad. The other thing I see is that there's some really, really smart people in Armenia, and they're working for companies such as Synopsys, PhDs, very bright, that are given subordinate or second tier or third tier work they're not giving the real work to do the research that's going to really improve the caliber of knowledge and capability in Armenia. Therefore, it's a vicious cycle. They therefore cannot attract future investment from other companies. So, you know, I've heard all this about let's make Armenia a destination like a Silicon Valley, but why would anyone go there or invest money if they don't feel the talent is there? Or moreover, if there's no security in the country. I mean, why would anyone invest in building, let's say, a brick and mortar research facility if they think the country is going to be overrun, you know, in 6 months or 3 months? So I'm not, just to be clear, I'm not criticizing this group. I'm saying I think the issues are broader. And I don't think it's something that a technical group can solve itself, because those issues don't exist in isolation, independently of geopolitical issues, security issues, resource issues. I mean, you know, if Northrop Grumman said, I want to go build a factory, you know, I mean, I'm not even sure Armenia has the electrical power and the consistency and robustness of a power grid to support that operation. So why would anyone invest in that? So there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed holistically. So it sounds like maybe what you're doing is a good start to that, because you have made some inroads into speaking with government. So maybe that's a good way to continue, but to make it a broader discussion.
Just to comment a few things to what you are saying. We saw from our this process, this process, which we'll call right now Gituzh initiative, is formally started in February, but actually we started this process much earlier, like end of 2019. At first, it was just a group of people who came together to sign a letter about science and send it to Prime Minister. There was almost no response. Nobody wanted to talk to us. Well, although there were like 70 founders of high-tech companies signed under the letter, even the law requires to reply in 1 month. We didn't get any reply. So we understood that you need to make a public demand. You need to create some kind of public demand. So that's why we started doing a public campaign. One of the reasons it works, I think in this case, it's because of obviously people in this community are much more known, and they have more like audience, bigger audience, they have more resources, but also because it was not directly, we are not going to directly benefit from these funds. So and we see that they because it's becoming bigger and bigger, and we always from the beginning stated that we are going to be non-political, no politics in what we are doing, and we are going in our judgments, in our statements, we are always going to be objective. We are not going to please anyone. We are not going to attack anyone, direct it at anyone. It's going to be objective. If this is a good thing you did, we are going to call it a good thing. If it's not enough, we are going to call it it's not enough. So that's how we performed, and it's why a lot of people obviously criticized us, like, why are you try to politicize, get us into politics, but it didn't happen. So I think that when you have such a broad consolidation, which is unprecedented, I would say, never ever in Armenia's history so many competing even organizations came together. So I think it's going to help if we continue pushing, and when we have such a public outreach, they already people, decision makers, can't ignore you. So that's one of the reasons why we got to this point. And there were a few other points. I didn't go into details right now, but there were also topics on the National Academy of Sciences that we pushed forward, and we already have some progress. But anyway, I want to say that it works if we do it in a big consolidation. Obviously, the second thing that you are saying is that it's a complex issue. It's not just one thing. And here, and then you talked about the politics, geopolitics, failed state, all these things that you mentioned. One of the reasons, and this is one of the reasons we also want to pay more attention to humanities and social sciences, because these are the roots why we have such a low level of competence in organizing the state, in diplomacy, and in people understanding the value of serving their country, and a lot of things, right? So it's important also, like we are a STEM group here, obviously. So we started also talking to, trying to find, in Armenia, obviously it's very hard to find competitive people in these areas, but we also start looking to outside, like let's say Armenian studies groups or institutes in different places, to also involve them in this process and start discussing more issues on humanities and social sciences related to Armenia or in general on a more like scientific level, not just emotional. And there's also a group, you probably know about them, the Society of Fellows, Armenian Society of Fellows, which tries to become a think tank in Armenia. And I think that's very valuable, because putting together a lot of people from different fields who can do research and give some recommendations on a strategic level what should be done. I'm looking forward really that we can collaborate with them from Gituzh and push more comprehensive agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one question, Dr. Melikian asked if we can share your email address. I have it typed out. Should I share the same Gmail with everyone?
Yeah, my personal, yeah, you can share the Gmail. Actually, yeah, please share the Gmail right now. We always sort of did Gmail, but
Melikian, you have, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, please.
So I see he has his hand raised, so I just want to see if there are any questions, more questions.
Yes, there is a question. Tigran, thank you very much for a very insightful presentation. We have to move in that direction. My question is more practical. Let's say we would like to have a PhD student in Armenia, or even maybe on a part-time basis to host a PhD student in our laboratories here at the US universities. What are the logistics? Maybe the process is not completely well thought out, I can understand, but how do you see this? Because my understanding is that if this is our field, let's say chemistry, then we have to go through the academic institutions, so it has to be an involvement of the National Academy of Sciences. Can you just comment a little bit on the logistics?
Yeah, I don't think you need to go through the Academy of Sciences there. Maybe the institute or on a research group level, if the person has an advisor there or a supervisor, probably they will need to discuss with him, because they are going to be missing part of the time, or spending part of their time on other project. But you probably on your side, you need to communicate with science committee on organizational part, and also the student or PhD student or postdoc, they need to apply to this program, obviously. On a research collaboration side, yeah, you need to also have a direct communication with the student and probably with their supervisor in Armenia. So you definitely need, I'm not saying that this is like everything is going to be streamlined. You don't need to have communication with anyone. Of course, you need to have some kind of partners in Armenia, right? With whom you are working and doing this, participating in these projects. But if you need any contacts, again, we can try to help. We know some people in the chemistry community also, but probably you also have the connections. So if you are interested, I think the first thing would be, we'll try to create this form and distribute also in ISA. If you can fill out like all the members, like I'm interested in hosting like a PhD student or postdoc, and this is the field. I don't know if somebody is able to cover anything, maybe let's say medical insurance, right? I can also do this, right? Or nothing. I just I can't cover anything. Just if person is interested, let him come. So at least now they will have a list of potential advisors that they can accept students or postdocs, and they can also try to help contacting them if you don't have the direct contact.
Thank you.
So we have one more question from Ruben, but I'll just add something. So I think I should put you in touch with Aram Satyan in our northeastern section. He is the person who previously was working. He has a list of PhD students who was working with them, trying to match them here with other PhD students from what I remember to do research together. There was a concept like that, and I'll just put you in touch with him. Maybe he could be a good.
Sure. Hello?
So the next question is from Ruben.
Yeah.
You said, okay.
Thank you for the overview, Tigran. Are there any plans for Gituzh in 2022 to explore opportunities to improve STEM education in Armenia in general, perhaps more specifically through K-12? So yeah, about the education, I should say that we never went directly into education topic, just because we try to stay focused. And also with education, there are a lot of initiatives, and our approach was that a lot of people are working on that issues, and we are happy to collaborate with them, but nobody is actually working on a systematic level of changing the situation with the science. And we view this also an integral part of improving the education, because obviously you can't have a good education in higher education if you don't have good professors, and of course you can't have good schools if you don't have good teachers which need to be taught in the universities, right? So I would say in that sense we are contributing, in my opinion, a lot to the improvement of the education. But on the other hand, we collaborate. I would say that there was a program where one of the scientific groups, the biology group, they organized this program for research by high school students, high school pupils, and they found like a group leader from the university and from the institutes, like researchers who were leading these research programs with the students from high schools, and they were making like a competition, like, who can go do some review of the literature, come and present, and basically in the end pitch a proposal, research proposal. And there is a bigger program that right now IPE School is doing with throughout Armenia, not only in IPE. I think they are taking a lot of like 10th grade and above students, and they're forming groups with someone in the scientific community as a leader that can work with them to make a scientific project, and then in the end they are going to have some kind of competition. Obviously, we had also ARPA was doing this science fair, but it seems like a lot of also organizations there are starting to work on this connection of science with the schools, and we help them, like in this area. Maybe it's not seen in the public, but they talk to us. We connect them with people, with researchers in different institutes, and distribute the information and help them to succeed in these projects.
So this is one of the areas that ASA has been active, and like in science fair, we have had the science fair for I think 21 years, so until now. So we have this competition every year to encourage STEM education, and for the past 3 or 4 years, I think we've had participants from Stepanakert, Yerevan, Gyumri, if I remember correctly. So maybe this could be something to, I mean, if you guys consider, maybe this could be something to work on together as well, if it ends up becoming an initiative that you guys are interested in. Are there any other questions?
Yes, this is Sarkis Barkudarian.
Yes, hi Sarkis.
I have a question, simple question. I'm sorry, I'm an engineer. So what's the metrics of your success? More money from government, more PhD students, more industry, more Nobel Prizes, etc., etc.?
You mean indicators of success for what I've done until now or later on?
Whatever in future. Let's say in 10 years, what will be your success?
That's a really good question, actually.
That's the question. Sorry.
Yeah. We are trying to formalize that, and I would say that for us, the target is that Armenia becomes one of the top countries, innovative countries, say by 2050 or something, right? We need to formalize that. I wouldn't say that we have right now, but one of the and also the metric, like by which metric and top what, like top 10 or what. Obviously, if you are putting a number there, it needs to be very strict. One of the things I want to mention here that we try to stay as informal as possible. There's a big reason for that. So you have seen that, like, we have a lot of organizations here, right? Joined. We're joining Gituzh, and there are business associations here, but there are also funds, like FAST also is a member of the community, right? And ARPA and the WHOIS Foundation is also doing scholarships, right? So we try not to becoming another competitor to whatever organization is there in Armenia or in the diaspora. Our goal is to complement their efforts. So that's one of the main reasons why people, like organizations, they don't shy away from joining Gituzh, because we don't want to become yet another one organization in the ecosystem that competes with everyone. Our goal is, I would say, in a sense, it would be great for us at some point to say, okay, we are not in it anymore. We are just going to go away. So our goal is that all the institutional changes, like all the ecosystem parts are there, so that it all can function fully, and then in that sense, okay, we reached our goal. So we try to complement. So whatever program comes and we know that something can be done, we always, our goal is to always go and see who can do that program in the community. If they can't do, we can complement them. If they can't do anything, then okay, maybe we'll start thinking of doing ourselves at the moment, but then somehow spin it away. So that's one of the reasons probably why I can't tell you right now. We have this like specific goal. We are going there. We have understanding that we want Armenia to become top innovative country in the world. One of the top I don't know, 5, 10.
I think Lukman has another question.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, I think we're over the time, but if we have a couple of minutes. So, Tigran, what does it mean for an organization to join Gituzh? What are some of the obligations?
At the moment, it means you are just supporting the organization, or the individual is supporting the agenda of Gituzh, which is outlined in our first statement. You can see it on our website, and that 3 goals that we put forward. The 3 goals obviously are changing, as we had some ties there to 2021, but we'll update that. So main goal is, again, as I said, 1% of GDP at least, and a strategy based on this commitment. That's I would say, summarize the main goal of Gituzh. And when the organization, if they support this, they just need to tell us, okay, we are okay, we want to join community, and then we can announce that on our social networks. They can also announce on their social networks. It creates a visibility that this agenda gets traction, like more and more communities joining, and we saw that this is working. And other things that we just have some communications obviously with the community, because whoever is acting in the name of Gituzh, let's say, right, they basically got some mandate to go and talk about the agenda that the community is caring about. So we always communicate back whoever is active in the community back what's happening, what are the updates with the community. So we have a mailing list which we send to individuals and also contact persons of these organizations, and there is a chat in Telegram for more or like a quicker news exchange, basically.
Yeah, I'll be happy to register Purist Fund if you'll have us. Just let me know how.
Sure, sure, definitely. We can take it offline.
So I think send us the form that you guys have and maybe we can distribute it among our members. So whoever's interested, they can join.
Yeah, there's no form actually. We can just so for the individuals, it's we have like this not strict, I would say, criteria. People who are founders or top managers in organizations in private organizations in industry. For the organizations, I mean, in this case, ISIs would be welcome to join. If you can discuss, just let me know what information you need, maybe for your board to discuss.
Sure, sure. So, do we have any other questions? Okay, no. So I'll just remind everyone, ISA members, that again, elections are coming up, so you need to update your address if it has changed. You can email it to contact@isa.org. And if you have an online account, you can already update it there. That doesn't, I mean, that works as well. And join our ISA Slack channel. We are going to send emails to remind you guys about it and share the link with you. And I want to thank Tigran for the interesting discussion that we had today. I learned a lot and I'm very happy to see this initiative. We hope to get there, not in 2050, but earlier. I'm a little ambitious with my timeline, but we have to be realistic as well. So thank you so much for what you guys are doing. And thank you everyone for joining today. If there are no more questions, we'll end the lecture.
I just want to make some suggestion if you can do.
Of course.
Yeah, you are probably sending some after email, right? After the events with the link to the recording and also some summary. If we can communicate, I can see if that forms are ready for the for people who are interested to participate in these programs. We can also maybe distribute that so people can express their willingness to participate in some form, so that at least we see what's the pool of people who are interested.
Sure. We can hold off on sending the link for a few days until you give us an update. So we can send it with the link.
Okay, I'll then communicate it.
Yeah, I think that would be better. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tigran. And
sure, thank you.
I wish you all a wonderful day ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.